Okay, so some of you guys might have heard something similar to this speech. Some of it's my own, but majority of it's somebody else's. So, a 4-story Latin crushed into 4 minutes. The entirety of humanity in the palm of your hand is crushed into one sentence. Listen, it's intense, right? God, our sins, paying everyone life. It's the greatest story ever told that's hardly ever told. God. Yes, God, the maker and giver of life. And by life, I mean any and all manner of substance. What's seen and unseen, what can and can be touched. Thoughts, image, emotions, love, atoms, and oceans, God. All of it is handiwork, one of which is masterpiece, made so uniquely that angels look curiously. A concept so cold, it's the reason I stay bold. How God breathed into man and he became a living soul. And with the intent of being infinitely intimately fond, creator and creation held in eternal bond. So it was placed in a perfect paradise till something went wrong. A species got deceived and started lusting for his job and all mystic complaints, as if the system ain't working. And used that same breath he graciously gave us to curse him. And that sin seed spread through our soul's genome. And by nature of your nature, we participated in the mutiny. Our sins. It's nature inherited, black in the human heart. It was over before it started. Led away by our own lust. There's not a religion in the world that doesn't agree that something's wrong with us. The question is, what is it? And how do we fix it? Are we eternally separated from a God that may or may not have existed? That's another subject. Let's keep grinding besides trying to prove God is like defending a lion. It don't need your help. Just unlock the cage. Now let's move on how our debt can be paid. Short and sweet. The problem is sin. Yes, sin. It's It's nature inherited, black in the human heart. We are led away by our own lust. And now I'm confused, guys, sorry. And the only way to get back to perfection is someone's got to die in your place. Not someone has to be perfect, or the payment ain't permanent. So if and when you find a perfect person, get him or her to willingly trade their perfection for your sin and debt. Clearly, since the only one that can meet God's criteria is God, God sent himself as Jesus to pay the cost for us. His righteousness, his death, functions as payment. Yes, payment. Wrote a check with his life, but at the resurrection we all cheered because that means the check cleared. His pierced feet, his pierced hands, blood-stained Son of Man, fullness, forgiveness, free passage into the promised land. In that same breath that he breathed into us, he gave up to redeem us. And anyone and everyone, and by everyone, I mean everyone, who puts their faith and trust in him alone can stand in full confidence of God's forgiveness. And here's what the promise is. If you put your faith and trust in God and God alone, you will receive life. Yes, life. That's the gospel. God, our sins, paying everyone life. Now, the first time I heard this, I kind of didn't really listen to the words. I kind of was zoning in and out of it, but I decided to take the time to listen to it and get to know it better. By the time I had it mostly memorized, I started thinking about the whole entire words. It's nature inherited, like, were we sent at birth or what? So I started asking all these questions. In the summer I went to a really good Christian camp where they answered a lot of these questions. And then I started asking myself, and then this theme came around where we're called out, and I was wondering, how am I supposed to be called out when I was confused on who I was being called out to like, who do I talk to? There are a lot of kids at school who need to know God, but I don't really know how to approach them. I had all these questions, and LTC felt like the perfect time for me. So I'm about to go to college, a senior, I'm going to graduate, and there's a lot of people in my school that I still haven't talked to. And so one of my priorities now is to go out and talk to them. And the more I listen to this, when it says anyone and everyone, it means anyone and everyone can stand in full confidence of God's forgiveness. It's not just the people who were born in the church or people who have recently come to know God. It means everyone. Even if they don't know God, they still have a chance at some time in their life to get to know him. And if their only chance was you, the only way they would ever know God is if you went up and told them and you didn't, that's such a tragedy. They'll never get to know God's love and his happiness, his forgiveness, because you couldn't go up and say, hey, start a conversation with them. Once you start talking, God will lead the conversation. It's happened before. It's happened a lot. He told Moses to go talk to people. He made excuses, but eventually he did it. He was one of the greatest leaders of all time. Same with Joseph, Mary, and all these other people who were great disciples and apostles for God. So next time you're at school or walking around somewhere and you feel that God's trying to tell you to do something, just let him lead you. Go through and talk to the person that you usually wouldn't talk to or sit next to.